The guillotine, poised at dizzying heights, cast a chilling presence during the French Revolution, where its swift and sudden descent became the symbol of terror. It was designed to be the humane method of execution by Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine, who ironically proposed it as a more efficient and painless means of death, but it would eventually become the harrowing centerpiece of France's tumultuous reign of terror from 1793 to 1794. This towering instrument of death, with its razor-sharp blade, claimed the lives of around 17,000 people, including King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, in public spectacles that were as much a symbol of justice as they were of cruel power. However, the guillotine story has left lingering questions, some of the most macabre and chilling involving post-death consciousness. For centuries, scientists and witnesses alike have speculated about how long a person remains conscious after their head is severed. Some reports from the period tell tales of blinking eyes and moving lips. Voltaire once said, "It is forbidden to kill. Therefore all murderers are punished, unless they kill in large numbers and to the sound of trumpets." Today, we revisit the blood-soaked streets of revolutionary France to explore the darker side of human nature and public executions that became a gruesome spectacle. Join us as we delve into the shadowy world of the guillotine and its terrifying impact on the people of France before the guillotine's efficiency became infamous. Execution methods in ancient civilizations were gruesome and steeped in the art of death. This rudimentary weapon symbolized the immense power held by rulers and executioners, and it was often decorated with intricate carvings, making it as much a symbol of authority as an instrument of death. The axe's application in these ancient societies was brutal, marking the beginning of an evolving cultural landscape for public executions. However, it became clear that the axe was an unreliable instrument for beheadings, depending too much on the executioner's strength and precision. A particularly infamous case from 1587 highlights the failure of the axe, and the second only partially severed her neck, requiring a third strike to finish the gruesome task. Anne Boleyn, Henry VIII's second wife, famously met her end with a sword in 1536, a courtesy not extended to his first wife, Catherine of Aragon, whose execution was more brutal. The Enlightenment period in the 18th century further intensified these questions, particularly as the desire for more humane methods of punishment grew. Dr. Joseph Ignace Guillotine, a name forever tied to one of the most infamous death devices in history, represents a striking paradox. Known for his passionate advocacy for the smallpox vaccine, Guillotine's early years were spent fighting to alleviate suffering and disease. Little did he know that his name would come to be associated with an invention that, instead of healing, would bring death in the most brutal form. Despite his lifelong dedication to medicine, Dr. Guillotine's career took an unexpected turn in 1789 when he was elected to the French National Assembly. During the French Revolution, as the tides of social and political upheaval surged across France, Guillotine found himself in the midst of a radical transformation in French society. The old regime had witnessed the use of barbaric execution methods, including hanging, breaking on the wheel, and drawing and quartering, often with extreme violence and public spectacle. Dr. Guillotine's proposal, however, was meant to replace these cruel methods with something more humane, a way of ending life quickly. He saw it as an opportunity to embody the revolutionary ideals of equality, and thus on October 10, 1789, Guillotine famously stated, "With my machine, I cut off your head in the twinkling of an eye, and you never feel it." This speech marked the beginning of his association with the guillotine. Even though he was not the actual inventor of the device, he proposed the idea, but it was left to others: Tobias Schmidt, a German piano maker, and Antoine Louis, a French surgeon, to build the first model. Schmidt, who had no prior experience with execution devices, was tasked with constructing the guillotine in 1792. Schmidt worked under the guidance of Antoine Louis, who was appointed as the head of the medical commission tasked with developing the new execution device. The device that he proposed to provide a swift and equal death soon became a tool of terror during the French Revolution, particularly during the Reign of Terror, when thousands of individuals, including King Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, were executed in public by the guillotine. Ironically, Guillotine, who had worked so hard to make death more humane, would forever be associated with an instrument of such horror and public spectacle. The guillotine, as it came to be known, was adopted by the French revolutionary government as the official method of execution. Public opinion, often swayed by the media, began to view guillotine as the man responsible for the creation of the terrifying device, even though he had only made the proposal. In fact, some accounts from the time suggest that guillotine himself became disillusioned with the device as it took on a life of its own, used indiscriminately during the Reign of Terror. Interestingly, guillotine's proposal for a humane death was rooted in his belief that equality should be maintained, even in death. He wanted the noble class to be treated the same as the common people, thus removing any perceived advantage based on status. It was not only the nobility who were executed by the guillotine, but also revolutionaries and commoners, signifying that no one was beyond the reach of the revolutionary justice. King Louis XVI, Marie Antoinette, and even Maximilien Robespierre, the man who had helped usher in the Reign of Terror, all faced the same fate under the blade. Guillotine's unintended legacy came full circle in 1794, when Robespierre, one of the architects of the Reign of Terror, was himself executed by the guillotine. Robespierre's death marked the end of the most violent period in the Revolution and symbolized the danger of the guillotine becoming an instrument of unchecked power. After the Revolution, Dr. Guillotine attempted to distance himself from the device, trying to reclaim his reputation as a humanitarian and physician. Guillotine died in 1814 at the age of 75. Not by the guillotine, as some had speculated, but peacefully in his bed. The guillotine, as one of the most efficient and chilling execution devices in history, was more than just a tool of death. It was a symbol of efficiency, equality, and revolutionary justice. The design of the guillotine was a marvel of mechanical ingenuity, and its simplicity contributed to its deadly effectiveness. At the helm of constructing the first guillotine was Tobias Schmidt, a German piano maker who was tasked with crafting the execution device in 1792, following the proposal by Dr. Joseph Guillotine. He worked with Antoine Louis, a French surgeon, and Charles Henry Sanson, the official executioner of France, to ensure the device would function smoothly and reliably in the execution of justice. The first public execution by guillotine was carried out on April 25, 1792. When Nicolas Jacques Pelletier, a highwayman, became the inaugural victim of the device. The guillotine was composed of two parallel vertical posts, topped by a crossbeam, from which a crescent-shaped blade was suspended. The design of the blade was a significant detail. It was angled, not straight, as a result of Sanson's suggestion, believing that an oblique blade would ensure a cleaner, more efficient cut. The device stood at approximately 4 meters tall, with the blade positioned to fall from a height of about 2.3 meters. The blade's descent was rapid, typically taking about 1/5 of a second, ensuring that the execution was quick and, as intended, painless for the victim. Once the blade was raised and locked in place, it could be released by pulling a cord, which allowed the force of gravity to bring the blade down on the victim's neck with immense power. The blade was released with unerring speed, and death was instantaneous, or so it was believed. It was a yoke-like device that held the condemned person's neck in place, ensuring that the execution was as precise and swift as possible. This feature also allowed for the device to accommodate different sizes of individuals, an unsettling but practical element of the machine's design. The device, despite its size, could be easily disassembled, transported, and reassembled. The guillotine was used in cities across France, not just in Paris. The fact that it could be easily relocated speaks to the cold practicality of its design, a tool not just for punishment. Despite its deadly efficiency, the guillotine was not without its moments of failure. Though rare, there were times when the device malfunctioned. For example, during Louis XVI's execution in 1793, the first strike of the guillotine did not sever the king's neck completely, and a second attempt was required. This incident, along with a few others, contributed to the growing mythos of the guillotine as an unfailingly efficient device, leading to refinements in its design. The guillotine's influence extended far beyond its practical use in executions. It also became a powerful symbol. It was more than just a tool of capital punishment. It was a symbol of revolutionary justice, a national razor that stripped away the lives of royalty, commoners, and revolutionaries alike. Its role in the Reign of Terror solidified its place in history as a tool that embodied both the ideals of equality and the dangers of unchecked political power. Although the guillotine was primarily associated with French revolutionary justice, its use continued for many years, with the device remaining in service until as recently as 1977. The last person to be executed by guillotine was Hamida Jadoubi, a Tunisian immigrant convicted of murder. His execution marked the official end of the guillotine's long and bloody reign, signaling the shift in societal attitudes toward capital punishment and the growing desire for humanitarian reforms in France. The design and the enduring legacy of the guillotine, however, serve as chilling reminders of the brutal history of capital punishment. It represents a darker chapter in the history of justice and reminds us of the ways in which the state can use death as a tool of power, especially in times of great political upheaval. No longer would the nobility be spared from the pain and suffering faced by the common people under the old regime. Under the monarchy, the noble class often met their deaths with beheading by sword, while commoners were subjected to more brutal methods such as hanging or breaking on the wheel. The first public execution by guillotine took place on April 25, 1792, when Nicolas Jacques Pelletier, a highwayman, became the device's inaugural victim. From that moment onward, the guillotine became synonymous with the Reign of Terror, a period from 1793 to 1794. King Louis XVI and Queen Marie Antoinette, once the monarchs of France, were executed by guillotine in 1793, demonstrating the new egalitarian nature of death under the Revolution. Marie Antoinette, once a queen, was escorted through the streets of Paris in a public spectacle where her fate was sealed by the guillotine in October 1793. The Reign of Terror, however, was not limited to the execution of nobility. Robespierre, the architect of the Reign of Terror, was eventually executed by his own creation in July 1794. Even as the Reign of Terror drew to a close, the guillotine remained a tool of execution in France for decades, forever marking the era as one of political bloodshed and upheaval. It was a tool of revolution that both embodied the ideals of equality and signified the bloody nature of the period. The guillotine's rapid rise to prominence during the Reign of Terror marked a dark chapter in France's history, where political enemies, no matter their status, met their end by its blade. From King Louis XVI to Marie Antoinette, it dismantled the monarchy's power and became a tool for revolutionary justice. However, it also highlighted the dangerous power revolutionaries held, often turning the blade against their own. This macabre form of public theater symbolized the revolution and transcended into literature, art, and film, cementing its place in culture as a symbol of violence and political oppression. Despite its decline in the 19th century, the guillotine's symbolism endured, appearing in works like Charles Dickens' A Tale of Two Cities and Victor Hugo's writings, as well as in modern art and media including Banksy's street art. Its image continues to remind us of the dark history of capital punishment. Though no longer in use, the guillotine remains a powerful relic in museums, representing the violence and revolutionary ideals of its time and justice, offering a cautionary tale about the dangers of excessive power and the consequences of using death as a tool of justice.